You're listening to the Culips English podcast. To download the study guide for this episode, which includes the transcript, detailed vocabulary explanations, real-world examples, and a quiz, visit our website, culips.com. CULIPS.com. Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew.
And I'm Suzanne.
And you are listening to Real Talk by Culips, the series where we teach you the English expressions you need to know for real-world situations. Hey, Sue.
Hey, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's been a while. We haven't recorded with each other for, I don't even know how long, but it's been a while.
Yeah, definitely a long time.
And I'm not exactly sure when this episode will be released, Suzanne, but we're recording on Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to you.
Oh, yeah. It is. Happy Valentine's Day. I forgot.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Hope you guys have a lovely day.
A lovely day, indeed. Well, Suzanne, today we are going to talk about an interesting situation, and we'll teach all of our listeners how to talk about food that you don't like in a polite way. And I think this will be a great episode, a very useful episode for all of the picky eaters out there.
And it's really important to know how to do this, Andrew, because a lot of people these days have special diets. And so it's essential to know how to talk about what you can and can't eat.
All right, Suzanne. So we'll get started in just a minute. But before we do, I want to remind everyone that the best way to study with this episode is with our study guide. And included in the study guide is the transcript, detailed vocabulary explanations, real life usage examples, a comprehension quiz, and more. The study guide is, I think, the best way to study with Culips. I'm a little biased, but that's my opinion. And if you want to get the study guide for this episode and actually for all of the episodes in our archive, just visit our website, www.culips.com, and you can sign up for that.
Awesome. So today we're going to start by listening to a conversation taking place at a dinner party between a host and a guest. And the guest finds himself in a bit of an awkward situation because he doesn't like the food the host is serving. So let's listen to how this conversation unfolds, and then we'll closely examine the expressions and vocabulary that the speakers used.
Sounds good. Let's take a listen to that conversation.
Hey, Ralph, you didn't get any of the Brussels sprouts. Let me pass them down to you.
Oh, actually, that's fine. I have lots to eat here already.
No, you have to try them. I made them according to my grandma's old recipe. They're delicious.
I'm sure they're incredible, but I have to be honest, and I don't really care for Brussels sprouts. The rest of the meal is absolutely delicious, though. You're a fantastic cook.
Oh, okay. I see. No problem.
In this example, we heard a conversation between a dinner party host and a guest. Now, the guest was offered some Brussels sprouts, but he declined because he doesn't like them. So now what we're going to do is take a closer look at that conversation and talk about some alternative ways that the guest could have handled the situation. So let's take a look at some of those key expressions right now.
So the main key expression here is I don't care for Brussels sprouts. Let's listen to that part of the conversation one more time.
I don't really care for Brussels sprouts. I don't really care for Brussels sprouts. Okay, so I don't care for Brussels sprouts. Or I don't care for kidney beans. I don't care for liver and onions. You can use this expression to politely convey that you don't like a certain food. Right, Suzanne?
Right. I don't think I ever hear someone say, I don't care for ice cream. Do you?
I hear I scream for ice cream.
Yes.
But not I don't care for ice cream. That's right. You can imagine yourself at a dinner party and the host is serving some food and you don't want to eat it because you don't like it. That's a really delicate situation. You have to really tiptoe around that situation so that you don't offend the host, right? So we try to use an expression that is as polite as possible so that we don't hurt the feelings of the cook, because you could easily offend someone in this situation, I think.
It's true. It's a little bit different than at a restaurant where the cook is in the kitchen and you don't see them, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's a good point, Suzanne. I don't know if I would use this expression at a restaurant per se, although I guess you could. Maybe if there was a salad with a bunch of different ingredients, maybe let's say one of the ingredients was red onion. When you're ordering the salad, you could tell the server, oh, actually, I don't care for red onions. Could you make the salad without them? Something like this. That would work.
Right, exactly. And now maybe we can look at some alternative ways that we can say the same thing. Instead of I don't care for or I don't like, what else could we say instead of those? Some alternative expressions.
Sure. Well, actually, the one that you just mentioned, I wanted to talk about for just a second. I don't like. So let's compare. I don't care for Brussels sprouts. And I don't like Brussels sprouts. Again, imagining that we're at a dinner party and we're talking to the host who has prepared a lovely dinner for us. What is the difference between those two in this context to you? What's your feeling?
I guess I don't like is a little bit stronger, a little bit more definitive. You're really closing the door on the item in question. Whereas I don't care for is a little more, it's a little softer, I would say. More, I don't really totally like them, but I guess I could try it, but it's not my favorite. You know, it's a little softer, I would say.
Yeah. And Suzanne, you and I were talking before the episode, and I mentioned that my mom taught me this expression because when I was younger, I was a picky eater, and when I'd go over to my friends' houses to eat supper with them, sometimes my friends' parents served food that I didn't like. And so my mom taught me this expression, oh, I don't care for that food. And I used that because, you know, if in that situation I said, ew, I don't like Brussels sprouts, it could be rude, and my mom didn't want me to be a rude little kid, so she told me to say, oh, I don't care for. So I've always remembered that, and now I'm not a picky eater at all. I don't have this problem, but I guess at some point in my life I did.
It's better than freaking out and saying, what's that? Yeah.
And Sue, you mentioned that in this type of situation, there's an expression that you like to use. Which expression is that?
Yeah. My family always says, I'm not a big fan. So I'm not a fan. Like when you're a fan or a fanatic of something, right? Like a team, you cheer for it, like scream for ice cream. I'm a big fan of ice cream. But I'm not a big fan of anchovies. And I feel like this kind of takes the charge off of, the food a little bit, or the cook, and it makes it more about the food, right? Instead of saying, I don't like that. And it's a little more, definitive.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of, strange fish like anchovies with hair. It kind of makes it a little bit lighter, a little softer.
Yeah, I think it's a very light expression, and I have used this one many times too. I'm not a fan of such and such a food. Exactly.
Yeah. And sometimes you can use it for textures too, because maybe the food has a texture and it's not necessarily it's not the cook, it's not the food. It's more, I'm not a big fan of like that kind of texture of food.
Yeah. Or I'm not a fan of sweet food or salty food.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other tactics that you could use in this situation
That's true.
that make it so that you're not quite as direct, right? So for example, let's say your host offers you some Brussels sprouts, but you don't like Brussels sprouts. You don't really want to say it though, because you don't want to risk offending the host. So you could say, no, thank you. Actually, I just want to save some room for more mashed potatoes, right? You could make up an excuse like that. Or I want to save some room for more rice, whatever an alternative dish that is being served is. And here, what does it mean? Save room. I want to save room for. That's kind of a unique turn of phrase.
It's really the space in your stomach, right?
Exactly.
So you don't want to fill up on Brussels sprouts. You want to make sure there's room in your stomach for dessert or for what you like.
Exactly. So that's kind of a cute way to jump around the issue and be less direct.
And then also you can kind of change the subject a bit and say, this food, maybe Brussels sprouts, kind of bothers my stomach. So I'm going to pass on this one. You can kind of blame it on your stomach, Maybe it gives you gas. Maybe it gives you indigestion. Maybe you don't know, but you're going to blame it on your stomach.
Yeah, or you could blame it on an allergy as well, right?
Yeah.
I'm allergic to Brussels sprouts. Actually, this is kind of a classic 7-year-old excuse at the dinner
That's
table.
true.
When a 7-year-old doesn't like what's being served. Oh, I'm allergic to that. I can't eat it.
But be careful. Don't say that to your mom, because your mom probably knows if you're allergic or not.
Exactly. Be careful. Another way that you could get around this issue is just to say, I'm going to save this for round 2, right? Hey, Sue, try some of the Brussels sprouts. You could say, I'm going to save this for round 2. And here, round 2 means, well, your second plate of food, right? Maybe you have a full plate already. You're going to finish that plate of food and get some seconds, a second serving. You could say, well, at that time, I'll eat some Brussels sprouts. And I think the strategy here is hopefully by the time you're ready to eat a second plate of food, the host has forgotten that you didn't try the Brussels sprouts the first time around.
But you have to be careful, because if you have someone who's a real hawk and who really is watching you and saying, hey, you didn't have a second round. Oh la la. So make sure that, you can easily redirect their attention to a good story.
I think here, because it was the host's grandma's secret recipe, she might be really inclined to make sure that you try some on the second round. So gotta be careful with this one. I agree.
Yeah. Maybe have a good story you heard from Culips in your back pocket to really take the attention away from the Brussels sprouts.
I think the key here, as always, no matter which expression you use, is just to be positive and gracious. And, at the end of the day, it's more about the method that you communicate than the words that you say. So even if you make a mistake and you say something that's not quite polite, it doesn't really matter if you say it friendly. Usually listeners are pretty good at picking up on vibes and understanding what people actually intend, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it positive.
Sue, good job. I think that brings us to the end of today's episode.
All right.
Well, thank you for listening, everybody. And just before we take off here, I want to remind you one more time that our website is culips.com. If you want to get the transcript and practice exercises for this episode, once again, check out the website and you will be able to download the study guide.
Yeah, and don't forget, we're also on Facebook at facebook.com/culipspodcast. And you can get in touch with us by emailing contact@culips.com. And also now on Instagram, instagram.com/culips_English.
We'll be back soon with another brand new episode. So we'll talk to you then. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.